Steve Stockton here with you for another deep dive into the world of the strange. This time, we're taking a look at the Glimmer Man, the invisible predator. Join me. Let's walk and see. Now, in the taxonomy of fear, there are monsters we can see, be it the hulking shape of Bigfoot, the glowing eyes of the Mothman, and then there are monsters that exist only as a distortion. They are known as the Glimmer Man or the Glimmer Men, sometimes called the Shimmer, Transparent People, or Predators after the 1987 film. These entities represent the ultimate evolution of the uncanny valley. They do not trigger our fear response because they look like a wrong human, they trigger it because they look like nothing at all, yet our brains insist they're there. They are the visual equivalent of a phantom limb, a hole in the scenery that moves with intelligent intent. The defining characteristic of the Glimmer Man is its lack of substance. Witnesses rarely describe a physical body. Instead, they describe a localized distortion in the air. The heat haze, for example. This is the most common description. It parallels the effect of heat rising off hot asphalt in the summer. It's a ripple in the visual field. However, unlike heat haze, which is amorphous and stationary, this ripple is roughly humanoid in shape, head, shoulders, limbs, and moves laterally across the landscape. There's also the saran wrap effect. Other witnesses describe it as looking like a figure wrapped in layers of clear plastic or saran wrap. It reflects light slightly differently than the surrounding environment. If the creature stands in front of a tree, you can see the bark through it, but the bark looks warped, magnified, or slightly out of focus. Then there's the cubist mirror effect. In some accounts, the entity acts like a flawed mirror. It camouflages itself by projecting the image of what's behind it, but the refresh rate, as it were, is slightly off. As it moves, the background drags or pixelates, creating a glitch in the matrix of the forest. Now, it's impossible to discuss the Glimmer Man without addressing the elephant in the room, the 1987 sci-fi horror film Predator. In the film, the alien hunter uses a cloaking device that renders it nearly invisible, appearing only as a translucent distortion in the jungle canopy. Skeptics argued that the Glimmer Man phenomenon is a classic example of cultural contamination. However, pre-1987, reports of invisible spirits did exist, stick Indians, jinn, but they were rarely described as technological camouflage. Then, post-1987, the descriptions of forest entities shifted almost overnight to match the visual language of the film. However, believers and folklorists alike argue that the film merely gave witnesses a vocabulary to describe something that has always existed. Just as flying saucers became the term for aerial anomalies in the 1940s, predator-style cloak became the shorthand for a very old, very specific type of spirit encounter. Now, let's look at the anatomy of an encounter. A Glimmer Man encounter is distinct from other cryptid sightings because it's defined by sensory subtraction. The silence, or the Oz factor. Almost every report begins with absolute silence. The ambient noise of the forest, birds, insects, wind, abruptly cuts out, almost like flipping a switch. This is known in high strangeness circles as the Oz factor. It suggests that the enemy emits a frequency or presence that terrifies very nature into stillness. Then there's the I spy. The witness is usually hiking or hunting. They feel an intense prickling sensation of being watched. They scan the tree line, and at first they see nothing. Then they notice a blur in the branches. They might rub their eyes thinking it's a floater or a migraine aura, but the blur begins to move. It leaps from one branch to another with impossible agility. It creates a sound when it lands, sometimes a heavy thud or even the cracking of a branch, proving that despite being invisible, it has mass. Then there's the absence of attack. Terrifyingly, Glimmer Men rarely attack, they observe. Witnesses often describe the entity standing within 10 or 20 feet, perfectly still, just watching. The horror comes from the power imbalance. It could kill me, and I wouldn't even see the blow coming, you think. But it chooses not to. This voyeuristic behavior aligns with the Dark Watchers or the Grinning Man entities, those that seem to feed on fear or curiosity rather than flesh. So, what is a Glimmer Man? The theories range from the nuts and bolts to the metaphysical. First, there's military technology. The most grounded theory suggests that the Glimmer Man is not a monster, but a human soldier testing advanced active camouflage. Metamaterials. We know that DARPA and military contractors have been developing invisibility cloaks using metamaterials that bend light around an object. As far as the testing grounds, many sightings do occur in national parks or deep wilderness, which could serve as testing grounds for classified tech. And then there's the flaw of the tech itself. This explains the glitchy nature of the camouflage. It isn't magic, it's a prototype that isn't quite perfect yet. Another theory, the interdimensional tourist. This theory posits that the entity isn't invisible in the traditional sense, but is vibrating at a frequency just outside our visual spectrum. This would mean that it exists in a dimension layered over ours. Occasionally, the membrane between the worlds thins, or the entity exerts energy to cross over. The shimmer, therefore, is the visual result of two realities interacting, like oil on water. This explains why they can move through dense brush without making noise sometimes, or pass through solid objects. And then another theory, the modern stick Indian. Now, in the Pacific Northwest, indigenous elders often chuckle at the term Glimmer Man. To them, this is simply the stick Indians, or Stiish Ta, behaving normally. Stick Indians are spirits. They're not flesh and blood. They've always been able to turn invisible. And the glimmer is just the modern mind trying to rationalize a spirit manifestation using the language of sci-fi. Then there's the terror of the unknown silhouette. Why is the Glimmer Man scarier than a werewolf, for example? Because a werewolf has a face. A werewolf has claws. You can identify the threat. You can run, or you can aim a gun at it. But you can't fight a Glimmer Man because you can't define it. It represents the unknown unknown. Is it naked? Is it armored? Is it holding a weapon? Is it smiling? Now, the human brain relies on pattern recognition for survival. We scan for eyes, for teeth, for body language. The Glimmer Man, however, denies us all of this. It's a blank slate onto which we project our deepest paranoia. Now, there is the tree climber variant, which is a particularly disturbing subset of Glimmer Man sightings, which involves arboreal movement. Witnesses describe seeing the shimmer high up in the canopy, leaping 20 or 30 feet between trees. Now, the physics of this movement suggest immense strength. If it is a human in a suit, they are performing Olympic-level gymnastics in deep brush. Now, if it's a spirit, it suggests that nowhere is safe, not even the verticality of the forest. In conclusion, we're left with the void in the leaves. The legend of the Glimmer Man is growing. With the advent of 4K cameras and smartphones, more people are capturing strange distortions in their footage, pixels that don't move right, backgrounds that smear. Skeptics call it compression artifacts. Believers look at it as proof. But for the hunter alone in a tree stand, waiting for a deer as the sun goes down, the debate doesn't matter. All that matters is the feeling that the air to his left has suddenly become heavy. All that matters is the ripple in the leaves that moves against the wind. The Glimmer Man is the ultimate reminder that vision is not reality. Just because you don't see it doesn't mean it isn't staring right at you. I look forward to your comments on this one. I'm Steve Stockton. Thanks for listening. Tell your animals I said hi. Be safe out there.